I'm kind of more of a free agent. But my wife keeps reminding me that I'm busier than I used to be when I was, running the business.
Welcome back to the Tonight Podcast. Today I'm joined with Michael Gledhill, and we're going to have a lot of stories. Experience, a storyteller, an entrepreneur, someone who worked in the L&D field for a long time, tech, engineering. So today we have a lot of stories. Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's
our
super.
Our pleasure. We always start with a fist bump.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, oh, yes.
Let's go. So I never introduce my my guests, so I will leave that to you.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
Sure.
Who's Michael?
So I think from my perspective, it's kind of a long story, but it didn't feel like it made any sense as I'm going through the career and the choices. But I guess where I am now is, an entrepreneur. We took a business from zero to a multi-million-dollar company to create the biggest e-learning company in the region, and sold that last year. And now I feel like I'm involved in 10, 11, 12 projects where I'm advising and consulting with new business, especially in the new tech and the learning and ed tech space. So yeah, that's kind of my story. But I guess the big story is where it started and how I kind of got to where I am today.
And how did it start, actually? So what drove you to that passion?
Well, look, I'm from humble beginnings. I'm a coal miner's son. I was born in a kind of a relatively poor town in hardship. Although I never felt that way because you don't know what you don't know. And my option was either go to the mine, and my father said, you can't go to the coal mine, or go to a chemical factory, which is not much better. But I decided to do engineering, so I became an electrical engineer, which is interesting because you think, well, that's no relevance to what I do today. But electrical engineering actually helped me to move into computer engineering. So I'm kind of old enough to remember the first PCs, and, the home PCs came in, and I was interested in software development and hardware, changing hard drives and all the rest of it. So that was kind of problem solving, if you will. And then from that, I guess the biggest thing for me was working overseas. So I decided as soon as I qualified to go and work overseas. Didn't have a clue where, how, what I was going to do, and did all sorts of, really labor jobs and building tennis courts and, cleaning boats and things like this, till eventually finished up working in a campsite. And I was the electrician going in, changing the compliances from gas to electric with my head down, quite quiet. And then I think a big transformation for me was one day they came to me and said, Paul, there's a coach load of people ready to go on a tour to Saint-Tropez, and the guide's sick. So can you take this tour? Well, of course, I'm thinking I'm just this quiet engineer. I don't know what to do. But then I got the notes and everything, and within 5-10 minutes, I kind of realized that I was telling them things about the journey, but making my own spin on it.
Yeah.
And you finish up talking about, here's a frog farm because they eat frogs in France. And I was telling them that that's where they go to the gym and lift weights. And people were laughing on the coach. And I'm thinking, I can actually entertain. And then I said to them, well, if you help me and point things out, I can find out what they are and I can tell you. Yeah. But I'm new to the game. And I think it was for me a change because it was me talking to a group of people like they were one friend. And I think that was kind of a change for me. And then I guess the next side I did 13 years in 13 different countries in travel and tourism.
Wow.
And worked in some wonderful places and had some fantastic experiences, learned about culture, and then went back to the UK to settle down and get a proper job, and finished up working with the government. And literally for 6 years, I was either on a training course doing certification and qualifications, and for the most part, the government wanted me to do that so that I could teach. So it was almost like I'd train a subject like health and safety or computer science. I'd learn about it, train it, and then teach it. And so 6 years was that. And then I came to Dubai on holiday, never thinking that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And that was kind of the start of the next episode. And again, by chance, met a lady that said, I'm starting an e-learning company 21 years ago. And she said, are you interested in joining up? And I thought, well, it's technology, it's training.
Yeah.
It seems like somebody's called this down for me. It's the perfect fit. And then we went from there and nobody knew what it was.
21 years ago. Yeah, 21 years
21 years ago.
Even technology to create that e-learning modules was primitive.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, again, I'm kind of showing my age. The first thing that I sold were DVDs. And I went to a large retail bank in the region. You can guess who that was.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I have these training CDs or training DVDs they were. And I said, and I can sell these to you and you can put them in your library. They had them in the library. I said, but, I just want to say that when I come back in 6 months, you'll not know, they were still collecting dust in the shelf. You won't know who's used it, who's learned anything, what they've done with it. So in 6 months' time, I'm going to show you what a learning management system is, where you could track and record and report all the activity in these videos, and we can put these videos in this learning management system. And that was kind of my first sale. So as a sales guy, I'm selling like DVDs in a suitcase, and then suddenly you're transforming that into more of a modern day learning management suite with, with e-learning content. And it went from there. So the early years, because we were one of the first to the market, was educating the market. So it was hard. It was tough to get deals. They didn't understand. I mean, clearly the pandemic changed everything because everybody had to go that way. Suddenly we're like, we've been 17 years and everybody's coming from the news and from, the social media and from the press saying, what are we going to do? And of course we said, well, the people that have transformed into digital learning will be fine. The rest better move quickly
because they shut down.
Correct. So I think that was kind of an interesting part of our journey. And then obviously we thrived through that. So that was when I started talking to my shareholders and partners about actually selling the company, which we did last year. We completed the sale last year. So I'm kind of more of a free agent. But my wife keeps reminding me that I'm busier than I used to be when I was, running the business.
So yeah, exactly, because your focus shifted from one project now to multiple projects where you're sharing your knowledge and you're sharing your experiences with different entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And that would take me to something very important, especially when you are not necessarily an entrepreneur, but you invest in some small companies or startups. You share with them your knowledge, you share with them your experiences. When do you say no? So when someone comes to you and is like, I'm doing this project, I want you to be on board, but this is the way we do it.
Yeah.
This is how I deal with my people. This is how I hire. What draws the line? And you tell them, by the way, I don't follow this. This is not something that I'm interested in. Yeah,
it's a great question. I think sometimes it's difficult because a lot of the times it might be, friends and people. And in fact, it could be an ex-employee that has moved on and matured and then comes to me and said, look, I'd like to do this. I think part of it's a gut feel. The second part is almost the emotion of their drive. Are they really passionate? Would they drop everything for this? Because, everybody talks about side hustle. By the way, I don't believe in side hustle. I think that even if you're an entrepreneur, an investor, you've got, a property portfolio, you invest in stocks and shares, crypto, all of these supposed side hustles, you have to work for them. Exactly. You have to check this, you have to check, report this and think about this. I don't think anything's like this. And then it's really about the passion of the individual. And then obviously the product set. I'm used to seeing tech fail. I've seen tech fail before. I've seen mergers and acquisitions where the cultures weren't a good fit. A lot of it, I guess, is experience. Just kind of, the feeling of this is good. This is good for them. The other thing that people don't consider is how hard it is, especially when it's a solo entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of the things that I'm involved now, are 2 or 3 people, or we're building a team. It might be one person that we're thinking about merging with another organization and, creating a portfolio of companies that would all add value. But it's then you're building a talent space. For me as a co-founder, running Expert Learning particularly, it was really finding talent. But then I always say the best thing about running a business is the people. The worst thing about running a business is the people.
How do you pick your people? How do you actually hire?
I think that it's a lot to do with what your gut feel is, and I'm going to always go back to that emotional intelligence side of it. But obviously, practically, you can hire a great salesman, but then they might be over-promising, under-delivering, not really understanding. Especially in tech solutions, it's a slow sales cycle in tech.
Yeah.
So they can't. It's not selling fast moving goods. They're not selling cars or property. This is it's a longer sale. You're looking for continuity, annual revenue growth over time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a different characteristic of the salesperson, for example. But I think a lot of the time it's kind of when somebody impresses me that they know more than me.
Mm-hmm.
If I ask a question, what do you know about HR tech to a tech, and he knows a lot more than me, then that's a good start, right? Yeah.
I always say something, and even one of my team members just joined 3 days ago.
Okay.
And we hired a new salesperson. And we went on a meeting together yesterday. And I was doing all the talking. He was shadowing, of course, but he comes with good experience.
Okay.
And then he said 2 things to the client that I never heard before.
Oh.
And they were amazing. And then in the car driving back, we were in Abu Dhabi. I was like, you know what? I learned 2 things from you today. And this is what makes good caliber.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, I love that.
Is when they know more than you, actually.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you get in a leadership role, they're the ones on the ground delivering.
Yes.
They're the ones on the ground doing all the work.
100%.
You need them to be always up to date.
100%.
And it also happened to me when I used to work in marketing. I was like, I'm rusty. And all the new generation, that the young people, they know way more than us. And how to stay ahead in the game, how to always learn. And this is where my next question is going to come.
Yeah, sure.
From all your experiences, from all the years, what is the best learning methodology?
Yeah, I think from a learning and development, I think that, people look for the difference between learning and transformation. And I think for me, it's, learning leads to transformation. And I think really, I like to see somebody do something for the first time or realize something for the first time. And I enjoy that feeling. If you've never done something and you suddenly do something, or there's a light bulb moment, I love to see that in other people. So I think for me, that's that kind of learning and continuous learning and finding different things to learn. And like you just said, it doesn't matter at what level somebody is. They have an expertise that knows something more than you do, especially the youth today.
Yes, exactly.
That swipe culture and the speed that they do things, and then multitasking. So I think being open to find that and to realize that somebody's got that, and to be humble enough to say, wow, can you help me? Because you're better than me at this, even if it's junior. So I love that story. Yeah, I think they're good lessons, but you're looking for lessons all the time.
Of course.
Which is so important.
Speaking about lessons, story time. I need a story that left a mark on you, and you were like, this is something that I will never forget in my life. In the work perspective.
Okay.
A situation, a success story, something that happened that were like, you know what, I will, you always speak about it, you never forget it, and it's something that left a mark on you.
Oh man, I mean, there's so many things that kind of turn the road. I think for me, it's any transition that kind of affects where your direction is. Because I think we're not sure where we're going. I'm still trying to work out what I'm going to do when I grow up. Yeah. Like that kid. So that enthusiasm, but I think, it's almost the. Let's look at the period when I was moving abroad. I didn't know what I was going to learn. I didn't even know that I was interested in languages. So I go and live in France, and I start to speak French, and then I pick up Spanish, and then you pick up. I even learned some Dutch when I was in Holland, and I didn't realize that I had I had the ability to learn something, but I realized later on, and certainly in this region, how multicultural it is,
of course,
and how important it is to communicate, not necessarily in their language, but at least from a holistic global perspective.
And
so
understand
I think
their culture as well.
Exactly.
Understanding culture is very important.
Exactly. So I think there's those kind of, you'll take those pieces of learning, and then they become
Your
transformative, and then they become sort of the story. I mean, there's not a particular event that was big enough to shape, who I am or the decisions I make. In fact, the truth is, I make loads of bad decisions.
You only learn from them.
Correct. As long as you learn fast and hard and do something about it. But I think that's okay. And even getting sort of information from, different members of the team and building teams and collaborating truly and being honest about that there's kind of a humbleness about leadership that's may have gone missing in some areas. So I think that's...
I always say, I only teach by mistakes. You only learn by mistakes.
Yeah.
So I even do it with my little daughter. So I have a 2-year-old daughter, and my wife is always scared that she will spill something or she's going to push something off the table. And I was like, let her be. She will only learn. She won't understand what shattered glass is until glass shatters. So instead of you always holding the cup, let it happen one time.
Good.
If she's wearing shoes, if it's not hazardous,
you're a brave father.
let her spill the water, and then we sit down on the ground and we tell her like, Baba, this is water on the floor. This is not right. And we get the piece of cloth, and she's the one who's doing all the cleaning. This is how we learn. Same thing in business.
Yeah.
The first 3 months for me in the job, I come from a background where I never worked L&D. I never worked in sales.
Okay.
In the first 3 months, I told our CEO, she was like, Yalla, go sell. And I was like, go sell what? I don't know what I'm selling. She was like, you will learn. Figure it out. Yeah. I made
in the deep end and swim.
I made so many mistakes with clients.
Yeah.
So
that's scary, by the way.
I only learned with clients. So she used to give me the clients that are, let's say, smaller in size, that will not make a big damage. And I used to go in and say some weird things, wrong things. But then I learned by, what do you call it? Embarrassment? Learn by embarrassment. I would say that.
Yeah.
And I learned.
Yeah.
So you only learn from mistakes.
I think one of the benefits of e-learning, and people have got different opinions on online learning, but I think it's a safe space to practice things. I think now with AI being more prominent, I think there's an opportunity now to kind of make those mistakes that are not in the deep water, because let's be honest, you could make a massive mistake with a customer, and that can be disastrous. But yeah, I guess it's kind of finding where you can jump in the pool, but it's not as deep. You can still bounce out. So, but I agree with you. I think it's a good. The lessons that we learn, they're more remembered when they've been big mistakes, as opposed to I created that and that was a success. So we took that company from naught to this, in this period of time. Then I think that's the successes, the failures are kind of they're harder to accept, but better to learn from.
Beautiful. Before we go to my segment, story time, I want to ask you a question that's recently I'm starting to ask. But are you happy?
I think so. I think, if you define, what is happy? Is it satisfied? Are you satisfied with your work life? Is there work-life balance? It's interesting that I think as I'm looking at kind of the new opportunities that technology brings, that whole holistic idea of, instead of segmenting your life into, I go to work, I come home, I do the family, I'm kind of hyper focused, and then I'm stressed because of whatever at work, and then I come home and I have to be a different person. I think the ultimate is that you almost feel like it's one thing, and that you don't have to transition, you don't have to go up the the hills and mountains in a day. So I think for me, 100% I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm fit. I'm watching what I'm eating, what I'm exercising, and everything like that. But I've got a good social network. I've got a great family life. I think from that perspective, I think I ticked all the boxes then, didn't I? So, the answer is yes. Yeah. Were there stages where I wasn't? Absolutely. And I think, you go back to sort of the challenges and defining moments. I think, when I've been in a job that I don't feel valued, or, and honestly, that's not necessarily the company that I was working for. That's probably myself and probably just the wrong, fit. I think from that perspective, then if you've got the sense to move out, then I think that's a good sign. But you are not great then. You're not performing at your best. In fact, a lot of the time with our company, we'd have kind of a performance review, which was a traditional review. And then I would have what I called a day in the life. And so I go with them and we go, shorts and a T-shirt and do whatever they wanted to do for the day, get to know them. And in some occasions, I actually found that they weren't as invested in the role. They were thinking about other things. And in those cases, I actually finished up helping them to get other work. In fact, some of our staff actually worked for some of our customers because I felt that was the right move. I think it's
that's really nice.
And it was not a lot of people would. Of course, we were 40 people, so it's manageable. When you get to hundreds of people, you can't go and say I'm going to go for a day in your life. The interesting thing is though they kind of went, oh well, I want to have a day in your life and come in a nice car, or go on a boat, or go to an island, go to the yacht club or golf club or whatever. But my point is, it changes the dynamic. So you're no longer the boss. You're a friend having a conversation, and you'll be surprised how much that reveals. And so you can catch that exit earlier, because if you're really honest, they'll tell you, well, I'm probably leaving in a couple of years. Yeah. And if they don't tell you, you've got to ask the right questions at that time. Like I said, not everybody can do a performance review that talks about numbers and KPIs and then do a nice day, but managers can. So I think that's important as a conversation. And now, of course, we've got technology, and AI is going to start doing that
for you,
asking you how you feel and all the rest of it. So, yeah, interesting.
That's beautiful. Story time. Yeah. So I need 3 stories from you.
Oh, God.
Okay. I need a happy, funny, or something happy story.
Yes.
That you learned something from.
Yeah.
I need a sad story.
Oh, God.
That you also learned something from.
Okay.
And I need a success story.
Yeah, okay.
Start with any story you want.
Yeah, I guess the kind of sad stories are usually about, when it's kind of hardship for people that work for you, and they might have, a family issue, or they might be going through a hard time. And I think that's always difficult. Again, this is where the best part of business is to people, and the hardest part, the worst part. Or even that you have a downturn in the business. I mean, we've been very open and honest about our number. We've shared where we are and what we need to do to get there. We always, try to inspire individuals to perform. But if they had personal issues, we had a very open door policy, and that's not always great because people will come and share all the kind of sad news. So there were some of those stories that weren't great and that we felt that we lived through. And again, I could have closed the door and not had that conversation. So I think those are kind of the, some of the, and I don't want to be specific because they are pretty sad. But on the other side, I think there's so many celebrity, events, selling the business is great. So we started to sell part of the business back in 2015. And then in 2018, there was a private equity firm that came in, and then we started the conversation, I said, at the back end of the pandemic. So those are always milestones. Hitting numbers milestone, you want to.
Tell me, how did you feel the last day? The last day.
Well, look, I'm still in. Look, you know, to be honest, I'm still involved. So I'm
okay.
still an advisor.
Advisory?
So I'm still doing that for a while. I felt like I didn't realise, but I felt like there was quite a heavy
Load.
coat that I took off. I didn't realise, and I think that's more of the responsibility of your, you know, that people rely on you,
Depending on you.
and I rely on them, but they're relying on us to sustain that business and grow that business all the time. So I didn't realise that was a pressure that I didn't necessarily feel, but now I feel that it's gone.
Yeah.
And what I'm really enjoying about, you know, this, whatever you call it, coaching, mentoring, advising, is that if I give advice and they don't take it, it doesn't matter. If I give advice and they do take it and it works, it's great.
Yeah.
But there's not the amount of pressure for the responsibility. And I think that's been the big change. But I'm taking on a lot on board because I love tech. And I'm working with a VR company, 2 AI companies, and some HR tech businesses. And it's so much fun. So, yeah, I think that's... like I say, I think that's the stress that's relieved from that kind of those experiences.
Type beautiful. Before we end, you mentioned entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, and with all what you've been through so far, can you give young entrepreneurs one advice before we conclude?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's the usual things about passion for the project. You know, you asked me earlier about where you say no to a certain you know, project. I think not only passion, but sometimes it's just not viable. You know, I've seen, you know, tech engineers that have built this fantastic software, and then I go, so what's your audience for that? What's the market for that? And they go, oh, I'm not sure. We built it, and it's great, and it's great tech. You know, it's like having, you know, the best VR project, but then realizing that actually you're selling this to an enterprise that has 10,000 people and they all need VR headsets. So is it practical to do that? So it's kind of identifying that something might not work. But to be honest, you know, sometimes it's a leap of faith. And if they've got the passion, the energy, the right ideas, the commitment, and then they're tapping into the right people. I'll sit on a board now because I know there's another board or another investor that I know or that I trust or that have got good reputation. So have they built a good solid team around them and then meet their teams? Or are they just a individual that's got a great idea? So that's kind of where I see the nuances of being an entrepreneur and identifying whether that's a good move or that's not a good move. And saying no is kind of hard, but in the long run, it's kind of more saying, have you thought about this? And have you thought about how you're going to raise this capital? You need a lot more than you think to get this off the ground.
So if I would summarize this, because I've been in their shoes before. I got a lot of rejections before.
Okay.
But I hated criticism. And
Okay.
I hated the advice.
Okay.
So I would just summarize what you said, which is you're not always right.
Yeah.
The business owners or the idea creators, they're not always right. You need to get the opinion of someone who knows what they're doing.
Sure.
Is this what you were
exactly right? And I think, you know, we built a community for the HR and Learning fraternity, and it's called Me HR and Learning. And I think for Me HR and Learning, the concept was sort of 10, 15 years ago to give back to that community, to have a network for people to express themselves. Now we've got, you know, hundreds of contributors that write for the magazine and for the online portal. And I guess really that's kind of sounding out individuals and, you know, training freelancers, and there's so many. And sometimes they can't build their brand. So helping these guys through a portal and using technology to support that, that's kind of where we're taking that particular project, which is, again, exciting for me because it keeps me in the kind of HR and learning space, which even though sometimes I think, oh, I want to get away from this. Yeah. Like you said, you dived into learning and development as a sales guy, not knowing where it would lead. And here you are doing podcasts.
I love it.
Who would think? So, you know, for me, it's kind of being comfortable around my experiences and where I think, you know, other organizations could go. And hopefully, you know, there's enough enthusiasm to take it forward and to be successful. Because although it's hard, if you put in the miles, you know, it's very gratifying.
Beautiful. Paul, thank you so much for your time. That was amazing.
Thank you very much. Another one.
Yeah.
Cheers, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Done.
Appreciate it.